All right, everyone, welcome to the Aldan Borough January 2022 general meeting. If you please rise and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll acknowledge Mr. Paterna, who's set up tonight, and Mr. Williams, who is our videographer in the back room over there. Everybody has a mask. If you need extra, they're there. Okay. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Mayor no, I'm sorry. Mayor Chachi,
Here.
President Procopio,
Here.
Councilwoman Blunt, here, Councilman Borders,
Here.
Councilwoman Lambert, here, Councilwoman McKernan, here, Councilwoman Smythe, here, Councilman Walker.
Here. I don't believe we have any awards or presentations for this evening. I think we'll have some for next one. Minutes. Is there a motion to approve and accept the minutes of previous council meetings presented by the Borough Secretary?
I'll make that motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there a second to Councilwoman Blunt?
I'll second the motion, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you, Madam. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So there's none. Okay. Receipt of communications. Anything from the office? Public comment. I think somebody did sign up. Is it Terry Quinn? Yes, Ms. Quinn, the floor is yours.
Okay, my main concern is the glass, the broken glass, down on the swim club property, and the liability that it will present once we are in full swing with our summer activities. Not just the glass for tires and the issue of having flat tires, but children walking in there with bare feet. I drove into the parking lot the other day, totally unexpecting it, and I had to swerve to keep avoiding glass. It was like everywhere. So
I will comment that I did notice that when it got overfilled before we settled the contract earlier in the month, and we have now a weekly pickup, that there was broken glass around the vicinity of where the container is. I hadn't noticed that it was in other spots in the lot. Do you have something?
I have not, but I think at this point, why don't we monitor it now that it's getting done once a week?
okay.
And if there is a problem, we'll address it.
We may need to do a cleanup because it was around the area where the dumpster, the bigger dumpster was, now a smaller dumpster. I did note that there were spots because it was overfilled over the course of the Christmas and New Year's holidays. You get picked up on a regular schedule like it should have been because of the holidays and because our gentleman had COVID issues. But it does need to be cleaned up. And I know that we're getting a camera installed. It's being worked on to monitor that, and it'll be reset slightly differently once we get everything put away, so that, but that dumpster is a lot smaller than the other dumpster that was there. But you're correct that I noted it would need to be a cleanup around the lot. And if it's another parts of the lot, we'll have to do it all, I guess. Have to go in there and clean it up. I didn't realize that it was spread out over the parking lot. I did note that it was near where because I usually go down once a week to get rid of my recycling. So I did notice that it was near that dumpster, and I have picked up some of my own, but there was a lot of broken stuff that needs to be swept pretty thoroughly. So.
Okay, so once the season starts, what's gonna happen then? I mean, you can't be doing it on a daily basis, picking up glass, or
Well,
on a weekly basis, having to worry about that.
I think that now that we have a regular scheduled pickup every week, I don't think we're going to have that issue. I hope not. The problem in the past was because we were reliant on the contractor to pick it up, and we didn't have an agreement. He was doing it as a favor to us in a sense. It wasn't regularly scheduled, and I noticed that when I've been there the last 2 weeks, it has been emptied on the Wednesday as it was supposed to, which would limit the amount of overflow that's there. We still have a problem with the igloo because that's a county issue that we've been trying to work on. But you know, we do need to police that better. So the camera's going to help, I think, and the fact that it's now regularly picked up. I know the one thing that it's not been a problem is the paper people have been very good about making sure that that dumpster doesn't get overflowed. But if we need to go in there and clean up the parking lot, we'll have to do that before things get kicking at the swim club, obviously. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the purpose of the cameras? Because there, you know, there's gonna be an issue there that you had to install them?
Well, the reason for the cameras, first of all, is to see if contractors are throwing construction debris in where the recycling is, because if
Okay.
that's the case, that whole dumpster is trash.
Okay,
And we've had that twice,
We've
correct?
had that more than one time.
Yeah, a couple
Okay.
times last year where contractors dumped debris.
And it's
in.
also for security and safety, that if someone should be able to feel safe coming down there, especially in the winter, 6, 7 o'clock at night when it's dark, to get rid of their recyclables.
Because there is a light, there's a light.
There's a light installed in the
It's going to be
corner.
installed down there as well.
okay. I noticed that was installed yesterday.
No, the light's been
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Well, the cameras were installed. They were put into the office yesterday. The swim club did not know about it, but evidently there was work done in the office yesterday. Is that correct?
I don't know that. As far as I know, it's just cameras. I don't know what work you're
The
talking about.
cameras, yeah. Okay. But we didn't realize that they were being installed yesterday.
Okay,
Okay. Um, All right, my other issue is the dumpster. I went past there today and there were boxes outside the dumpster, even though this doesn't look like it's full, because I know myself, I have trouble getting the stuff in. So I think you need some kind of remedy for that too, either a shorter dumpster.
Well, you're correct. When I've been down there, I put stuff in there. A lot of it is people want to put it in the igloo, which is designed for glass and plastic, because most of the ones that I picked up have been glass and plastic that they've left outside the igloo. And I have discussed the fact that that dumpster is higher than I thought it was going to be. I don't know if we can get one that's slightly shorter in there. We'll have to talk to him and see if we can.
then you're looking at a 20-yarder, and will it hold a week's worth?
What's the size of the one that's there now?
I'm not sure what that is. We had a 30 before. If that's a 20, there is another size, but the reason he went with that one is because he has a replacement. So if for some reason he goes on Wednesday and he can't empty it and get it back, he can put a replacement in place, so you always have a dumpster there.
Your concern is a good one that has come up, and we're trying to come up with a resolution for it, but I don't have an answer at this point in time. But I don't disagree that it's higher than the one that was there before.
Okay. And I just wanted to ask, were there any other locations considered for the recycling?
There really are no other ones.
I mean,
Well,
The Giant did not want us back there.
Because of the issues that we are now seeing.
Well, and it was,
Correct.
and that was hidden. I mean,
I know.
another reason for a camera.
Yeah.
So the only property that the borough actually owns where we could put it would be down at the pool, or up here at the, the fields. We have no other locations.
And sorry, you might remember when we had a dumpster by the
The
school,
Yeah,
that was right for people. I know that they, was before my time on council, but they actually went with sliding doors in order to cut down. And I saw somebody, I don't know how they did it, but they stuffed the sofa in there, even though the door wasn't very large. So that's another reason it's in a more public location, which led to more vandalism, if you will, and spoilage of the recycling bin. So your concerns are not invalid, and we've tried to make corrections to try and make it as smooth as possible. And as you know, the recycling committee went out and did a lot of work, and we went out to bids and we got 0 bids to do curbside recycling last year. And it's our intention, Councilwoman McKernan is going to lead another charge to go back at that again this year to see if we can't get curbside recycling, at least get a bid that we can look at.
Mhm.
But the price was going to more than triple. And that's why we discontinued it. It had been talked about for a long time prior to 2021. And then when you pointing to us. So it's a difficult market for recyclable material for both pricing and the fact that it's not really being recycled. A lot of the material, Councilwoman, you correct me, there was like 50% of the stuff that we were supposedly recycling was not from curbside, was getting sent to the trash and steam plant. So, I mean, the thought was, why pay extra money for something that's going to get burned anyway? So that's where, it's not the greatest situation, but at the moment, it's the best that we're able to do, and we do need to address your concerns, absolutely.
Okay, one more question. When you said that the price was gonna triple, what would the per resident cost of that be?
My memory was it was gonna increase by $100 per household, combined with other things that were going on from where it had been. I mean, we were paying roughly 40 grand a year
45.
and was going up to over $130,000 a year for us to do it. Or we could have gone with a lower cost, but then we would have been eligible to have to pay for the tipping fees, which at the time were over $100 a ton, where we were paying about $63 a ton for our trash disposal. So that's why the council rejected, unanimously, it rejected the bids back in the fall of 2020.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And we'll monitor it. I'm down there, I said usually once a week or every 2 weeks, and I noticed something. I just didn't realize that the glass was spread further than around the dumpster area. But we'll need to address that, absolutely. Anyone else? No? Okay. Moving on, Mayor Jakey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have just a few items. The first being, I just want to thank council for approving the mask requirement that I issued through proclamation at the organization meeting. Just to clarify, the mask mandate is for 2 buildings in the borough, the 2 buildings that are owned by the borough, this and the municipal building. And we will obviously continue to monitor and try to get clarification from the Delaware County Health Department on the number of cases. The last I read this week, the number of cases in Delaware County is over 800 per 100,000, which is enormous. So for now, that I thank the council, and I of course thank very much the public for their compliance with this mandate. Since our reorganization meeting, there were 3 people who were not yet sworn in, 2 of whom I have been able to swear in: Sue Kelly, Emergency Management Coordinator and Planning Commissioner, and John Quinn for Zoning Hearing Board. I'd like to read a letter that we received, that the chief received from the police chief of Springfield Township. It's really, it can make us all very proud to be living in Alden, where we've got such a great police force, and specifically Officer Ryan Bell, whom you'll hear about now. Dear Ken, the purpose of this letter is to bring to your attention the vital assistance that Aldan Borough Officer Ryan Bell provided in resolving an armed carjacking that occurred in Springfield Township on Sunday, December 19th, 2021. At approximately 9:15 in the morning, an employee at a local furniture store arrived for work and had just parked his personal vehicle at the rear of the business when he was blocked in by a gray Durango occupied by 2 males. As the victim was exiting his vehicle, he was confronted by the passenger of the Durango that was armed with a 9mm handgun with an extended magazine. The armed suspect stole the victim's car and fled the scene. Following the carjacking, the county dispatcher disseminated a regional broadcast. Shortly after the broadcast, Officer Bell observed the Durango on McDade Boulevard in Collingdale. Using sound police tactics, Officer Bell trailed the vehicle until he had sufficient backup. With the assistance of the Darby Township officer, Steve O'Hara, an attempt was made to stop the vehicle. As soon as the emergency lights were activated, the vehicle fled to elude the officers. Given the significance of the crime, the officers followed and witnessed the Durango run another vehicle off the road and into a utility pole in the 500 block of Calcon Hook Road before crashing, exiting the vehicle and fleeing on foot. Acting as a true professional, Officer Bell rendered aid to the injured operator and sole occupant of the vehicle that was forced off the road, while Officer O'Hara and other assisting officers apprehended the suspects. As it turns out, the Durango was carjacked in Philadelphia earlier in the morning, and the Philadelphia police reported the suspects were wanted in connection in a series of carjackings in the city. Officer Ryan Bell's professionalism, adherence to sound safety tactics, and coordination of the pursuit resulted in the removal of 2 career criminals from the community. As an aside, the handgun was recovered and found to be a 9mm with an extended magazine with a 31 round capacity. When recovered, the magazine was found to contain 17 live rounds. The Springfield Township community thanks Officer Ryan Bell for a job well done. Signed by Joseph J. Daly, Chief of Police of Springfield Township. I just want to commend Officer Bell on this incredibly brave and apparently very successful and very professional action. And he really makes us all very proud. Thank you, Chief, for sharing this with me. And I guess the last thing I'm going to report is I think that the chief and I are planning to try to get together sometime next week so that I can get the ins and outs of our police department and all that they do. So thank you all very much, and that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Any questions for the mayor? Hearing none, we'll move on. Borough Manager, Mr. White.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first thing I'm going to report on is a scam that's going around. Somebody's going to send you a check in the mail and ask you to send back a portion of the funds. Once you deposit the check and you withdraw the funds that they would require, it's not going to clear, it's invalid. So this is a typical way that scammers are actually going to give you, nobody's going to give you a check for $5,000 in return for $200. But unfortunately, it happens too often, even here in Alden. So nobody's giving you money for nothing. It's a scam. Hang up, tear it up. Call the police department, will be glad to assist you on it. The second thing I have is the speed data analysis report for last month. We deployed the unit at Albert and Providence. In unit block, actually, of Albert, 2,357 vehicles went down the street with a posted speed of 25. Average speed is 20. Second place was North Clifton and East Wayne, 24,001 cars, posted speed of 35, average speed of 28. This is a reminder of where we had it before on Albert because we've had a complaint from a resident. West Magnolia and Albert, 2,402 cars, posted speed of 25 miles an hour, average speed 22. West Providence and Wayne was actually the 400 block of West Providence. 84,295 cars, 1 week time period. Posted speed of 35 miles per hour. This is around the curve, average speed 31 miles an hour. The last place we put it was West Wayne and Sylvan Way. I know everybody complains about it being a cut through, but there was only 876 cars. Posted speed of 25 miles an hour, average speed of 18. So again, this is a very valuable tool we have. It proves a lot of things. First of all, we do not have a speeding problem in Alden anywhere. Is there an occasional speeder? Absolutely. Is there an occasional person who runs or does the South Philly stop? Absolutely. That probably happens at every stop sign in every town. But we do not have any issues as far as speeding. And I know you've received complaints from certain individuals about people constantly running it. It is not true. That's all I have, Mr. President.
All right, is someone going to report about the RCAP today, filing,
Go ahead.
the RCAP that we submitted? You want to do that? Yeah, why don't you do, go ahead and let them know what was going on.
So we got a request from State Representative Mike Zabel. If we were looking for any grant opportunities for the upcoming RACP project. Speaking with Council President Procopio and Mayor Chichi, we put in a price of $2,500,000 with the state capital budget request of 1.250, and that is for a 6,400 square foot addition to the outdated police and municipal building. We're not binded by anything. We can change the size. We can change the price, but at least ours right now is on the agenda at the state legislature level.
It had to be submitted today.
It
was the
had to be
deadline.
submitted today. There was a deadline. So unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to discuss with everybody. But at least we have something on the table at this point.
And there's a long process before we get any of that money, if we get any of that money.
If
So
we do.
it will come up in the region. We just had to submit some information. It had to be submitted today in order to get submitted to be on the budget review committee. Whether it gets through that or not, we won't know. And
But
that's
we're not held responsible or liable for anything.
it's only a 50% match too. So
Right.
that's the reason why the request was only 1250 as opposed to the full. We'd love to have the full 2.5. Sorry.
So we'll see where we go with it.
Yep. Any other questions for the borough manager? Seeing none, borough treasurer, Ms. Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will begin my report with the general fund. The beginning balance of cash on hand for the year is $358,615.14. Our receipts for this period, the first 20 days of the month, is $16,601.66. Our net expenditures were $142,932.45, leaving us with an ending balance of cash on hand of $232,284.35. Moving on to the state highway fund, the beginning balance of cash on hand was $62,583.08. Our only income to the highway fund was 36 cents in interest, and the ending balance of cash on hand, leaving it was $62,583.44. Moving on to the sewer fund, beginning balance of cash on hand, $198,832.95. Our receipts were $1,301.41, no expenditures, leaving an ending balance of cash on hand of $200,134.36. Mr. President, at this time, I would ask council's permission to approve release of funds so that we can pay out of the general fund, $142,932.45. And this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to accept the treasurer's report as read and to disperse payments in the amount indicated.
Yes, Mr. President, I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report and pay our bills for the month.
Thank you, Councilwoman Smythe. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Borders. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any questions for the treasurer? Seeing none, we'll move on to the solicitor this evening. It's Mr. Costa.
All right, not too much to report. 33 East Providence, Mr. Tartaglia, how's that coming along?
We have actually issued demolition permit to a company who is prepared to go in there and start taking all the plaster from the interior along with whatever flooring has been worked. And I know I approved the permit. Deb, did they come in and pick it up?
Yes, sir.
So they picked it up and they told me they were scheduled to start demolition on Friday.
Fantastic. The only other thing is the U.S. Department of Treasury issued a final rule for how municipalities can spend American Recovery Act funds. It's a 437-page document, but there's some very good guidance. So we'll be looking at that. So the borough can disperse those funds according to Treasury guidance. And that is all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Costa. Mr. Tartaglia, that you have a special name for that permit? It's not a full demo.
We issued a previous one, which was selective demolition.
Okay.
And that was specifically to identify the areas that had to be removed.
Okay.
As it turns out, it's old. So they're doing a complete demolition of the interior.
Of the inside of the building?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Costa, I know you and I discussed this earlier, and I've seen some information on this, but that even though the funds were approved in March of 2021, and we got half of the money deposited in our accounts sometime in August, I believe, unknown to us, it just appeared. It'd be nice if I could have money show up in my account that way. They just issued the final rule on the 6th of January this year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and we have, I
After
think,
a public comment period from the issuance of the interim final rule 90 days prior.
and I think we have either March or April, we have
April 30th.
we have to submit a report, and we will have a future public meeting about how we were going to expend the money now that we know exactly what the rules are. And I appreciate the work that was done by the people that help us find that information. Any questions for the solicitor? Seeing none, engineer, Ms. Heather Gill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, a couple things. Chapter 94 reports, they're annual sanitary sewer reports that we submit to DEP every year. They are due the end of February. Just wanted to give you a heads up that we're working on them, and we can provide a copy. Once they're submitted, had an alternative one for sale system. Early in January, we received a letter from Gannett Fleming saying that they would like the borough to sign a second resolution. And this resolution specifically indicates an alternate to construction of a deep tunnel storage and conveyance facility. So this is newer information. I know we've discussed this before. I put in calls to Gannett Fleming because I wanted to better understand what the difference between last year's resolution is and what this year's resolution is. So I've left 2 messages. I haven't heard back. Been speaking with Dan. I guess he was in touch with Mr. Hertz, I think is his name.
Charlie Hurst.
Thank
Thanks to
you.
Mr. Morris, our representative of
Yes.
Darby Creek Joint Authority. Mr. Hurst called me this evening at around 5 o'clock, so.
So we're gonna try and get some more information, and considering that, you know, this was kind of brought up pretty quickly. Obviously, leave it to council to decide, but I'd like to just get some more information and just, you know, hold off before I can make a recommendation to you in regards to this latest resolution, which they refer to as alternative 2.
And hopefully they'll work with you. When I talked to Charlie, I said, you know, they're kind of up against it, but just reading this, just getting this information today. He said, I don't want to put anybody, you know, in a box or up against it. So I'm hoping Charlie and Yannick will be flexible with you guys.
I guess last month, maybe December, November, PennDOT approached us for a casting agreement. They're gonna be doing work this spring in April. So we had our inspector go out to see if there were any sewer manholes that needed replacement or adjustment. There are 4 that are within PennDOT roads, and then there's gonna be 1 additional frame that we will order in case it's needed, and they discover something when they're out in the field doing road work. So we're working on getting the signatures for that agreement. We are waiting to rebid the multimodal PennDOT LED light grant until we get verification to make sure that PennDOT, each company that bids has to be PennDOT approved. The last bid, some were not, so we're gonna hold off, and when we get the green light from the borough, we will rebid that project. I put in some calls to DCED, DCNR, and PA American Water. It's my understanding that there's gonna be new round of grants coming out this spring. We are required to do pollutant reduction projects. One of the projects that we received $75,000 for was through DCED. And that's for the infiltration facility at Magnolia Avenue. And we have until June 30th of 2024 to move on that, but per discussions in the last year, it sounded like something we could go forward with, you know, this year. But again, it was only about half of the funding for the project. We estimated it would be about $150,000. We received $75,000. So I'm trying to look for some other grant alternatives to see if we can get some additional funding for the borough. And I think that is it. Does anyone have any questions?
I do, Madam Engineer. So the chapter 94, is that sanitary or
That's sanitary.
that's
correct?
sanitary sewers?
Correct. The MS4 of the stormwater reports that are due, I think, the end of July.
And the PennDOT castings, was that on Oak? Where was that street was that on? Or was it Clifton? Clifton Avenue?
Yes,
I remember coming up before, I just remember the street. And you did talk about our bid amount, the 75,000 we're short. And my understanding is, and we'll make sure to review this, that some of that ARA money can be used for both storm and sanitary sewer. So that may be, if we don't get any other grants, that may be where we go to try and move that project, because we're required to do improvements each year for our MS4 for stormwater, correct?
Correct.
And then when is our deadline on that wonderful multimodal grant? I'm
We
sorry.
have until, and that grant was approximately 155,000.
Yeah.
We have until October 15th of 2024. So
Okay.
we have time for that.
And this would be our third time going out to bid.
Correct.
First time PennDOT approved and then disapproved, and the second time all the bids were over the grant amount. So that's why we decided to go back again. All right, that answered my, anybody else have any other questions for the borough engineer? Thank you very much for your persistence in the matter. All the matters. Reports of boards and commission. Zoning board did not meet, although we did swear in new members and have appointed a new solicitor. Planning commission, Chairman Tartaglia, you're up.
Good evening, President. We did have our first meeting of the year, January 13th, right here in this building. And at that time, while we did not specifically discuss any issues, we did make ourselves a list of proposed projects for the year. At the top of the list would be review of certain zoning sections, and then a review of the sewer lateral ordinance. Looking toward the sign ordinance, since we don't actually have one for LED signs. And I think A1 came up, the business ordinance implementation. What we have to do to modify our current business ordinance so that we can actually put it into play. A couple of other items that we sort of put to bed was the development to Springfield, which apparently has raised its head again. They're going back and forth, trying to figure out what kind of stormwater management system they're installing. Engineering need help here.
Correct. I
All I'm doing
received,
is reading the emails.
correct. There's a thick file of emails that I have here. I apologize. I probably should have mentioned that they received a call, an email that piping is really hard to and expensive to obtain these days. So they wanted to know if they could do a storm track, like a tank type design instead of pipe and stone bed. And they submitted plans. I reviewed them. They were close to what approximate peak rate and volume requirements we approved originally, but not quite enough. So I went back to them and said, this is what the amount was approved. Can you adjust your design so that it exceeds or meets what was approved? They were supposed to get plans back to me. They didn't. And there's an email train this week that now they're thinking going back to the original bed design. So I sent them an email today to say, could you please verify which one we're going with, so that I have a copy of the latest plans and get Tony a copy of the latest plans, and we know how to move forward.
So would I be correct in saying that as of right now, the only approved plan is the original one? And now they've brought in Falcone as a contractor.
Correct.
To do the work.
Per an email today, that's my understanding, yes.
And then the only other things that we discussed, which were later on in the year, would be property maintenance, and then maybe take a look at subdivision and land development if we don't run out of time. Everyone is invited to come to our next planning commission meeting. I'm sure everyone will be interested. That would be my report.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing up to Springfield. I forgot about that as well. Are there any questions for the planning commission, Chairman? Tina, I just have one. You told me they were removing some of the crushed stone that was back there to use at other locations. Is that correct?
It appears over the last 2 weeks or so that some piles of the crushed stone have gone. That I saw them loading with the track hoe and the triaxles and removing it from the site. So
And you've heard nothing about the removal of the rest of the additional retaining wall / storage facility here. Okay.
nothing.
Yeah, all right. Very good. There's nothing from the recreation board?
Spring soccer, registration's open for spring soccer and baseball, softball. Register at aldenyouthclub.com.
Spring soccer, huh? How about
Spring
that?
soccer, yeah.
How about that? Okay.
So if you went by and saw soccer on the LED, it's not a mistake, it's spring soccer.
One of the reasons Mr. Kern is not with us tonight is he's coaching the team right now, playing in a basketball game in the youth league. So good luck to them. I'm gonna skip the next one. There's nothing from the historical commission at this point.
No, just taking the tree down.
I noticed the outside decorations had already been taken down. So thank you. Look very nice for the holidays. Board of Health, do we have something to report? Is that, you're gonna wait till Carolyn?
Yeah, we'll wait for
All right,
Carolyn.
we do have a report about the Board of Health from Councilwoman McKernan. All right, seeing nothing else, we'll go to the reports of the council committees, Public Works, Mr. Borders.
Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, I guess, what's still fresh on my mind regarding the resolution for Resolution 2022-06, the Act 537 plan update. Due to the late notice and the lack of informed consent, I would like to make a motion to table that resolution.
There's a motion on the table by Councilman Borders to table Resolution 2022-06 dealing with the Act 537 plan as described by our engineer Heather Gill. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Blunt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I will just comment further that I did speak with Mr. Durst. Is that Hurst? is his name?
Hurst.
Yes. and
Charlie
he-
Hurst.
He and I are working on, he may be coming to our caucus meeting to give us a lay of the land. He was very informative, very nice. So he did say that February would be good. Not that there's any other alternative, but at least we'll get all the information we need to make an informed decision. You may continue, Mr. Borders.
Thank you, Mr. President. The lateral repairs at 405 Sylvan Way are complete. It was also discovered during the setup for the job that the manhole at 502 Sylvan Way was in need of repair, and the ring casting was replaced in the upper section of the brick walls of the manhole with fired for cement. Residents are also reminded to make sure their sump pumps are properly discharging onto their runs and not illegally into the sanitary sewers or streets. Also a reminder to be mindful of what you put down your drains, like wipes, grease, and oils. Grease and oils can be frozen and then disposed of in the trash. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Borders. Are there any questions for the councilman? Mr. Ross?
Mr. President, yes, Mr. Borders, Councilman Borders. What was the cost of the repair to the manhole cover?
I have not seen an invoice on that. No, I don't have an answer for you.
We haven't gotten the bill yet on that. They just did it.
I don't ask for bills.
They just did it at the end of December, so they haven't submitted a bill for us yet. But I guess it worked out well because they were working, they had to, if I understand, they had to block that in order to work on the sewer, and then when they went in there to open it up to block it from either side, they found that it was deteriorating. So it actually saved us because the street probably would have started to collapse at some point in the not too distant future.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Anybody else? Seeing none, Public Health, Councilwoman McKernan.
Good evening, everybody. I have the trash numbers for December, which was 159.52 tons. And this Saturday, the 22nd, there's the shredding and e-cycling event at the Clifton Municipal Building at the corner of Springfield and Baltimore. They're doing shredding from 10 to 1 and e-cycling from 10 to 2. And as alluded to earlier, there's a new dumpster down at the swim club that's being emptied every week on Wednesdays. So residents, please don't leave items next to the dumpster or next to the igloo that's sometimes overfull. We do understand it is a tall dumpster, hard for not as tall people to get the items into the dumpster. So we'll see what we can do to resolve that for our residents. I did submit to the DCBA to host another cleanup at the swim club in April. So we'll hopefully hear back from them about what the scheduling is that. It'll be a Saturday in April. And then the Department of Health, the Giant, their license expired at the end of 2021. And so they wanted to reach out to renew their license, but because the County Department of Health is not yet fully up and running, they were advised to come to us to renew that. So I guess that's something we have to deal with for now. Do you have anything else to add to that?
The county actually is not yet approved by the state. That is the reason why, when I spoke to her last week, she didn't have a timeline. So at this point, they're telling us to reach out to our local Board of Health, which I don't think we have at this point.
Well, yeah, the the presentation made by the county to us back in July was that they would have everything up and running by the first of the year.
Right.
And I know they've made great strides, but they haven't reached there. And for those that haven't seen it, there are some municipalities, I think 7 townships, that have actually filed a lawsuit to stop them from doing part of it because they're not up and running yet. This kind of caught us a little off guard because we did not move to have a Board of Health, but we now are going to have to consider taking care of that at our next meeting. This information just came out to us recently when we reached out to them to find out what was going on. So that will be a topic of discussion, and something will be resolved between now and February, so we get back on track again. The question? Yes.
So, do I understand that there is actually no timeline? Is that what you just said?
There is no timeline. They're waiting for the state for approval.
Thank you, Tim.
And as we've seen, dealing with the state, PennDOT is our contact point in particular. Sometimes
They
it
have
takes
their own time.
days, correct, it's forever. So I know the county has a Board of Health and they've appointed officers and stuff, but they're not legally allowed to continue with their inspections, what they were supposed to start as of January 1st. So it's an area of concern, and we will address that in the coming weeks. Anything else, Councilwoman?
That was all that I had in
All right.
mind.
Any other questions for the Councilwoman?
One
Mr.
quick
Morris?
question. What are we allowed to put in the dumpsters?
The dumpster is plastics 1 and 2, cardboard, glass, cans.
And a month.
We did, a lot of
There you
people
go.
should have gotten this. Go ahead,
I
keep
got it.
going.
Is that everything?
That's all right, I'll take another one. Thank
We'll put paper in the paper dumpster.
You got one? Anybody else didn't get one? Okay. I didn't get mine yet for the people that are out there, right? So my mailman didn't deliver it yet. So anything you can put in the igloo, you can put in the dumpster essentially. Although the igloo, if we separate things, it works out better in the long run. But if we can't get the igloo collected, which has been an ongoing problem with the county, then putting it in the dumpster is just as good. So, yes,
It
Mr. Ross.
actually brings up a good question. I remember, if I was correct, when we were collecting before, you couldn't put in cardboard with like oil stains or whatever. Is that still the case?
Yes, pizza boxes are not
Pizza boxes
acceptable
are
with
not
the same. Yep, that's part of the deal. Any other questions? Seeing none, highway, Mr. Walker,
President.
baptism by fire.
So we've had some winter weather as of the 1st of January. Actually, on January 7th, we had snow overnight into the morning hours. Cleaver was contacted. They are our service provider for salting and plowing. They were contacted by Borough PD and Borough Manager Mr. White on the 6th. Those snow totals were about 3 to 4 inches in Delaware County. Some places saw more, some saw less. But all of our roads here in the borough were plowed and salted by 7:30 in the morning. The other event we had was on January 16th. That was snow turning 15th into 16th, turning into freezing rain. And again, Cleaver was contacted on the 15th to pre-salt the roads. We were not sure exactly how much freezing rain turning into ice due to temperatures we would actually see, but we never had a problem. Speaking of that, we have 40 tons of salt on hand with 20 tons that had been ordered recently. So we're all set for the month, actually for the year, pending any other events. We'll see.
We'll
But
go through another 60 to 80 tons by the end of the year.
by the end of the year, that includes going into next winter as well. But there is chance of weather this evening into this weekend, but let's be hopeful that it's just rain. Other highway projects, I will be working on a highway committee SOP, standard operating procedure, as far as what to do in case of inclement weather, contacting our contractors, coordinating with the police department and other borough managers. So that will be coming out later in the year, but I just wanted to make council aware that I will be putting a SOP together for the highway. And that concludes my report. Oh, one other thing, sorry. If there are snow events, please park on the even sides of the road. If you have parking available on both sides, it just makes the plows and salts trucks going by easier to navigate through, and they don't have to worry about weaving between cars or anything like that. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. Any questions for the councilman? I think Mr. Maiden made it through almost 2 years that I was on with no snow events. I do have a question. What's the plan for this coming snow tonight into tomorrow? It's supposed to start as rain. It's gonna be the reverse. The other one was snow, get the salt down, then it turned to rain. This one's gonna be rain until early tomorrow morning, and that's
And
gonna
once
go,
it starts accumulating,
then you'll go for the salting of the roads.
no, not at that point.
No,
You
cloud.
saw afterwards. At this point, when it starts accumulating, you will call ADU services, come out and plow.
Wow,
When they're done plowing, we'll see what the streets look like,
okay.
whether they need salting or not.
It looks like it's gonna be a tricky one, so let's hope we get all rain. I agree with you, Mr. Walker. Any other questions? Seeing none, Public Safety, Council Vice President Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the Clifton Heights Fire Company reports and weren't able to get it in the paper. I have it here. There were 46 fire dispatches. For Alden, there were 8. The types of alarms for Aldan Borough were the one alarm system, a motor vehicle crash, a rescue of a vehicle, a hazmat fuel spill, and a co-alarm. The Clifton Heights, sorry, it's moving around here. There were estimated loss for the this is for the Clifton Heights Borough, which shows is $600. And then I have the Alden Police Report. And the Alden Police Report shows that there were 231 radio calls. There were 3,721 miles patrolled, 82 traffic tickets, 74 parking tickets, and 1 armed home invasion. There were 13 accidents. Altogether, there were 31 medical emergencies with ambulance calls.
Yeah.
For the detective's report, there were reports of 2 reports for child abuse, 1 for missing juvenile, 1 of a burglary, and 1 narcotics at 3 locations and 4 thefts. And the total dispatches were 46 dispatches. And I also, Mr. President, met with the chief to go over some of the ways that we could work together better during this time. And also received it said it was a police action bulletin that if someone approaches you or comes to your home and offers you a free mask, any type of mask, and asks you to try it on, that this is one of the, as Mr. White reported, it's another one of the scams. But from the report, it says that the mask is laced with some type of chemical that could render a person unconscious and then for them to be robbed. So don't accept candy or mask from anyone.
Mhm.
And the Pennsylvania Association of Boroughs, I received some of the magazines and distributed them to the new and the previous council members. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the councilwoman? Yes, sir. Could you identify yourself?
Dennis Whaley,
Yes, sir.
President. Yeah, speaking of the fire department, the siren that goes off, is that to alert the volunteer guys to go to the local firehouse, right?
Volunteers, yes.
Volunteers. There's not another system we can come up with other than have that thing going off in the middle of the night.
A lot of the fire departments in the area have gotten rid of that over the years because it's not like when the towns were founded and you had the candlestick maker and the baker and the attorney and the doctor on the street that would come running. I remember Lansdowne was particularly noisy because it was very loud and they've got it. But I'm not aware of what the standard is for Collingdale and for Clifton. So we'll have to ask our fire marshal, Mr. Garrity, who's not with us tonight, and see So if you give us your information, we'll get back with you with some sort of an answer to what their system. I know a lot of people that I know that are volunteers, they have pagers actually with them, or they now get alerts on their cell phones to come if they're needed. So I appreciate your concern. I guess I don't pay it. I'm so used to them. I don't pay attention to them anymore, but thank you.
I'm used to them. I've heard them since I was a kid.
If I may, I did actually ask, I didn't go through official channels, but I happened to ask a volunteer fireman why we can't just start, being that it's 2021, last time I checked, why we can't use technology. And frankly, I didn't have, I mean, it was just, I think it's kind of a old school kind of mentality of fearing that technology could fail and then there's no backup. So I don't know, but I think frankly, it's something that I think a lot of people find irritating.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
if that happens to be my house on fire, I want that thing
He
screaming.
wants to scream. So for that reason, we should never get rid of it.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Law and ordinance, Councilwoman Blunt.
Thank you, Mr. President. During the month of December, we processed 56 permit applications, approving 35 permits with fees of $9,205. There were 5 permit fees that were doubled for starting work without a permit. That total was $425. There were 37 site visits that included the items from concrete 3/4 to final inspection for occupancy. There were 7 transfer inspections, 4 sale re-inspections, along with 13 rental inspections and 4 rental re-inspections. Hearings were held in the district court on December 16th for several outstanding citations. Cases continue into January, and I believe Mr. Tartaglia mentioned that we are close to caught up to the pre-pandemic schedule in terms of the backlog. That's still about 45 to 60 days out, but we're getting through the backlog. We're about as up to date as it gets. We will begin issuing citations to landlords that did not receive their rental license in 2021 for their rental properties, starting the 1st of February. We do typically allow the 30-day grace period for completion of that process. Notices for the 2022 rental program are being prepared and mailed out. Let's see, we talked about Mr. Tartaglia receiving plans for 33 East Providence and the updates with Springfield. The other item is that President Procopio and I met with Mr. Tartaglia to review the Commonwealth Code's monthly reports for December, so that I can get more familiar with those. And I'm also scheduled to meet with Deborah Crockett to review our processes with coordinating code enforcement tasks. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the councilwoman? Seeing none, we'll move on. Finance, Councilwoman Smythe.
Mr. President, I'd like to report the reserve account balances. General reserve balance is $606,122.44. Sewer reserve is $297,858.16. Police capital reserve is $1,088.04. That ends my report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the councilwoman? Seeing none, unfinished business. I don't think we have anything pending from last month, other than what's been reported on already. New business, caucus will be held here on February 2nd at 7:30 p.m. in the John P. McLean Community Center. And our voting general meeting will be held here on February 16th, which is Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. I'll also note it's not on here, but the Planning Commission is encouraged by our chairman. We'll be meeting here on February the 10th. That's a Thursday night, also at 7:30 p.m. in this meeting. Privilege of the floor. Anyone that has any comments they'd like to, that didn't come up yet this evening? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Borders. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Blunt. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Be safe overnight tonight and tomorrow. Thank you very much.
So, next month, we'll have to make a motion to take it off the table.
Yeah, this is right, yeah.
So,
Thank you for your help, sir. I was not expecting a call from him. He sent me a text message. And
We were trying to get you three-way.
well, it worked out well. Every year.
I didn't even know. That's what we want from our code enforcement officer. Right, yeah.
Hi, Peggy. I'm good, yourself?
Sure, yeah.